Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the True Believers podcast. We've got a very special one for you today. First of all, we are covering the Thunderbolts. This is a full spoiler reaction show. We are going deep dive into Thunderbolts. So before we go any further, guys, that is right. We are diving into everything Thunderbolts. We're going to be spoiling the heck out of this movie. It's going to be a blast, and I'm ready to get started. Of course, you might think I'm Kyle. You know, I'm the host here at True Believers, co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, but I am not. I am Kyle's alter ego, Bob. So I promise you, I can't tell what's going to happen with this podcast. It might turn dark very quickly. I don't know what's going to happen to me. Things happen when they get unleashed. But I need a group of Thunderbolts of my own to help me with this podcast. And luckily, I did have Red Guardian limo services, but I don't know what that might have done to some of our guests in that experience. So we're going to see what happens. In fact, I'm already kind of worried about the first person I'm going to introduce. He is, of course, the co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm worried his head has grown in size. You'll understand in a minute, I think. But he is the one and only Kevin Red Guardian Reitzel.
We are the Thunderbolts! Yes! How's it going?
You become more egg-shaped in your head, Kevin. I don't know what's going on there.
Hold on, wait. I got an itch on my head. There we go. Yeah. So good. Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Was that from the extra butter that you had in that thing when you were eating your popcorn at the film?
You got to wash those out, dude. I'm wearing one of the popcorn buckets. We'll get into that later.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We'll get to a lot of things later, apparently. Next up, she was actually kicked out of the Red Room because she was too much for the Red Room. They couldn't handle her. But she is the queen of movie foo, the one and only Lacey Adderhold.
Hello. Very exciting, very exciting. Huzzah, huzzah.
And lastly, we've brought in an expert. You know, he might be a little past his prime, but he still lives in the high moments. And rumor has it he puts his metal arm in the dishwasher and just cleans it that way. I don't know if that really works or not. A little cascade maybe, but he is the one and only Mr. John Mosby.
Hello, fresh from the mauve room. I feel that is so good.
Well, we are going to have a fun episode of True Believers here on the Fandom Podcast Network as we cover everything Thunderbolts asterisk, and we will talk about that asterisk before we're all said and done here. Of course, then you are watching this on the YouTube channel of the Fandom Podcast Network, or maybe you're listening on one of our audio feeds as well, and we appreciate you guys out there doing that. And in fact, if you want to find our audio feeds, there's a QR code up on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. Give that a scan. It takes us to our homepage at fpnet.podbean.com, where you can find not only this great show, but all the audio versions of our shows on that homepage. And like I said, it's also on all the great podcast catchers out there. But again, this is a full spoiler reaction show on Thunderbolts. And, you know, we're going to get through a lot of things.
Spoilers!
Yeah. And Kevin, you know, Kevin running off of that cheap Russian remake of the Super Soldier Serum. I don't know what's going to happen there.
It only works in my right arm. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, there's all kinds. I'm just leaving that alone. I'm just going to leave it alone and go forward. But we are here to talk about Thunderbolts, the latest addition to the MCU, a movie I have personally been very excited about for a long time. This movie very much has the same feel to me as far as level of excitement and curiosity as the first Guardians of the Galaxy film. You've got your misfit characters. This feels like movie felt to me before it came out like it was one of those movies that they could just have a little bit more wide berth with and do a little bit more with these characters. You know, we Thunderbolts Wheaties box, man. Got to go get it. I mean, I still haven't found it on my cereal aisle. I don't know where Red Guardian is to point it out to me. But we'll get into that too.
Yeah, there's some that have the full cast and some of them don't have Taskmaster.
Yeah, we'll get to that too. But Red Kevin, we do things a certain way here on the True Believers podcast because it is an MCU podcast. You can you maybe, if the helmet isn't squeezing too tight, can you maybe explain what we do?
Oh yeah, well we got phases here. We don't have segments. We have phases on True Believers. And the first phase is our plot description, first reactions, and some cast comments as well. Second phase is a trivia and Easter eggs, any cameos we might have seen. Phase 3 is plot analysis, ties to the MCU and comics, and any article reviews. And we close it out with our final thoughts, big predictions of what's to come. So there we go.
Well, I'm ready to shift into our first phase, but I'm just going to tell everybody right now, it's going to be a little different. We are going to have our movie reactions, but there's been something invading all these movies lately.
What?
It's the attack of the popcorn buckets, and unfortunately, it's rated this podcast. So, unfortunately, no matter what Tesseract power we use, the popcorn buckets are going to take precedence. So, let's shift into phase one, and let's talk some popcorn buckets. Kevin, I'm just going to hand it over to you because you wanted on the Thunderbolts popcorn buckets. Loved your lovely wife, Erin, who had much patience for you while you went on your popcorn bucket search. And it all starts off with AMC theaters and their collectibles. Kevin, I hear you've added a new limo to your collection.
Yes, but let me start off with what I'm wearing on my head right now because I want to take it off. And what I'm wearing is the Red Guardian popcorn bucket that has the helmet that you can take off. And as you can see, I have my my helmet on right now, and I'm going to take it off. Woof. And it goes on this metal tin right here that proudly showcases Mr. Red Guardian himself, played by David Harbour. And popcorn bucket basically opens up on the top if you want to put your this over the metal tin itself, and you reach in there and you grab the stuff. And you can kind of wear it as you see as a helmet. It's not very comfortable though, so I'll tell you that straight off there. These I found at Cinemark theaters there, and then I went to what was it? Regal next because I had tickets to go see it with my wife, my lovely and patient wife, by the way, at AMC. So I went to Regal, and this is my least favorite of the buckets. Let's go ahead and show this one right here. Oh, yeah, you got it, Kyle. There you go. As you can see, it's a round bucket that says Thunderbolts, just kind of black around it. And then at the top is the Thunderbolt symbol that they've been showcasing for all the stuff. But I did want to showcase that you have a drink container that you pull out and you fill up with the drink. Oh, I see. And if you can look really closely, it pops off at the top, and then you use this as your popcorn bucket. Lacey, you have thoughts about this, don't you?
I do indeed. I go to Regal because I've got the Regal pass, and so I don't go to all the other places. I gotta tell you, I picked up one of the buckets that was sitting there, and I was like, I'm never going to be able to clean the asterisk after the Coke in it, like after you put a soda in it. And then I took it out and I was like, I can't. If you put your hand in the middle to get popcorn out, it hurts your hand.
It does. If you can tell of the picture, that looks painful.
Yeah, it's not. I was like, you guys, what? I was like, that doesn't look very, no.
Well, okay, wait, I have a question. Which popcorn bucket would be more painful, the asterisk or the sandworm?
Oh, this one for sure. John is looking at me like, God, what did
I mean, of all of them I've seen online, I thought that was the more basic one that actually worked for me more. I mean, I will concede, yes, I can see now it might be sharp edges, but of all of them, it felt like the most simple. It wasn't like that, oh, we're going to do a fancy helmet kind of thing. It just felt like, oh, somebody's seen how we could put these two together. It sounds like a really good idea. It probably just needs refining a little bit more, but I like the kind of double duty stuff.
If the top of it twisted off, it'd be fine. If that top
actually, I should clarify, it does. And I just didn't do it in the picture, but yeah, look at it. It pops right off. If you look at that right here, let me.
Okay.
I'm sold. I'm sold.
Yeah, that's way better. The other thing was that I knew that I wasn't going to be able to clean the cup afterwards. The cup, I mean, trying to get in all those little nooks and crannies. Nah.
Yeah, the cup is interesting too because for the asterisk symbol or whatever it is, it's a little tough to pop off here, but yeah, you pour it in right there, so it holds quite a bit, I guess. But yeah.
But trying to clean it after, nah. I would get the limo. I think that's like a fun one.
Well, let me showcase the limo here. So
I mean, I feel like going anywhere with this, you'd be like,
yeah. So I have the limo here, and as you can see, let me go ahead and give a full screen here. This thing is quite long. Look at this thing here.
Mhm.
And it's got the U.S. Agent Shield on the back. If you've seen the movie, you know what that is. And Red Guardian is sitting in there. Mine was loose inside, so I had to kind of reposition it. And if you look on the bottom of it, it pops through right here, and then he sits there. But this is where the popcorn bucket part of it is. It's on the top, and you'll open up this, and then there is inside the big basin for the popcorn itself. So, I wouldn't add butter to these at all, but it is made of metal and it is long, as you can see. And I've been seeing these go for anywhere from like $60 to over $100, but they're also charging a lot of money for shipping on these that I've noticed. So
I mean, it's pretty, but I don't think it's I mean, it's as a popcorn holder. I mean,
well, the nice thing about AMC is that you can buy that and then they just give you a bucket of popcorn.
Yes,
popcorn in it.
Most places do that, but I've noticed with this thing though, if you don't, this is the Regal asterisk bucket that we were just talking about. If you don't put the asterisks in the right way the first time, you're like trying. It's like a puzzle. You got to figure out which way it goes in right.
Now, besides the popcorn buckets, though, Kevin, you found one other thing that they were putting out.
I did not get my hands on this. There's two things I want to talk about. This one here, this is a collectible keychain that you can see on the picture here that was only made available to the opening night fan event and IMAX selected AMC theaters. It's just a little keychain. It's probably a little collectible. I don't know if it'll gain much value or anything. But the one thing that I did have a problem with, guys, is let me show you the picture here. If you look at this picture here, you will see that popcorn bucket at AMC, they had these collectible cups. And the way that our AMC did it is that there's a random amount. They have the little toppers of all the characters in little plastic bags. And there's each one for the main characters, the Thunderbolts, but they're individually wrapped. And what they did was they randomly put them inside the cups, so you couldn't pick which one you wanted. So obviously, I got one for myself and my very lovely and patient wife, Erin, and ended up with a U.S. Soldier and Bucky here as the toppers. So
right on.
I'm not a fan of these toppers. They look a little too, Funko, which I'm not a fan of personally. And also, I got to give a thumbs down on the cups because after one washing, some of the art has already started to come off.
Oh, bummer.
They're not like these Deadpool and Wolverine cups were made of this hard plastic and this kind of really cool thing. And this I've watched several times and it's survived. So that is my review and my take on all of the popcorny buckety stuff.
Kevin, I need to ask you something real quick. You're giving a lot of love out to your wife in period when you talk about the popcorn buckets. She didn't go void on you, did she?
No, but she says, "Look, I'll go with you, but you're paying." I said, "Deal." But actually, just really quick though, she actually did like the film. She liked her quick review was that she liked that there was a lot of character developed, a lot of good drama moments, and less on the action, those long action scenes that happen in a lot of MCU films. She appreciated that. It got a little dark as well. That's her quick review.
Well, guys, any last thoughts on the popcorn buckets, Lacey or John?
Nope.
I was quite impressed with the standard of popcorn buckets so far. It's going to be interesting to see what the rest of the year's movies come up with.
Well, if you have not seen the Toothless, that popcorn bucket that's been popping up online for How to Train Your Dragon,
I did want to mention one thing. It feels like people are going to theaters again, and if it's because of the buckets, that's helping. But I'm noticing more people, especially with the bigger films, they are coming to them. And we had a good turnout at our theater and stuff. And also, too, I've noticed a lot of the theaters are selling popcorn buckets and stuff. Maybe they didn't sell out of a lot of stuff that was recently been opened.
Yeah.
Purchase some of these. So I thought that was cool.
There were only 5 people in our screening, and unfortunately, it wasn't a big chain, so there was no popcorn buckets on ours. But we still enjoyed it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I had a very good crowd. I went opening night. Yeah, it was a very good crowd. So
I went for the preview at 3 p.m. and I saw it by myself.
Wow. Yeah. I went to the first showing at 2:00 our time.
Wait,
and
2 in the afternoon. Sorry.
Yeah. We had a decent crowd at ours.
Ours was about 3:30 on Friday. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, mine was. I went to an
Mine was
8 p.m. Thursday, and it was a pretty packed crowd.
Mhm.
So, but I know, Lacey, I didn't notice how you popped up real quick when I mentioned a toothless popcorn bucket. So
Yeah, very excited about that. Love the Dragon series. That's
Me too.
well, guys.
yeah.
Let's get into the actual movie now itself. Let's talk about Thunderbolts. Kevin, I'm going to read the plot description. You mind driving a little bit on the slideshow there for me?
You got it.
Okay, so first of all, we're going to talk about the IMDb plot description here because we like to do that around here, see how accurate IMDb is. IMDb describes the plot as after finding themselves ensnared in a death trap, an unconventional team of anti-heroes must embark on a dangerous mission that will force them to confront their darkest corners of their past. I think that's fair, guys. But let's get into actually a little bit more of the plot itself. As Thunderbolts opens, CIA Director Valentigra Allegra de Fontaine, remember the day, it's not Fontaine, it's de Fontaine, faces impeachment for illegal activities. She sends Yelena Belova, John Walker, who is the U.S. agent, Ava Starr, who is the Ghost, and Antonio Drekhov, who is Taskmaster, to a secret compound to battle each other. After Ghost kills Taskmaster, a man named Bob suddenly appears. Upon learning they were sent there by De Fontaine to be incinerated, along with evidence of her activities, they manage to escape from the trap. Belova, Walker, and Ghost flee from the scene after Bob distracts De Fontaine's forces, who open fire at him. Bob gets up from the gunfire, flies upwards before crashing back to the compound. Alexei Shokotov, having overheard De Fontaine's activity, sorry, Alexa actually kicked in on my mention of that. Go figure. While overhearing De Fontaine's activity while working as a freelance chauffeur, picks up Belova, Walker, and goes. Shostakov decides to call the team the Thunderbolts after a losing soccer team Belova played in during elementary school. The team is chased by Humvees before they are captured by Bucky Barnes, who plans to use them as evidence for De Fontaine's impeachment. Upon learning that Bob was the subject of one of De Fontaine's top secret projects, Barnes teams up with the quartet and they storm through the former Avengers Tower in New York City, now called the Watchtower. There they discover that De Fontaine has turned Bob into a genetically enhanced human called Sentry, who swiftly defeats the Thunderbolts and forces them to retreat out of the Watchtower. Thinking he is a god that is more powerful than the Avengers, Sentry turns against De Fontaine, but is incapacitated by a kill switch activated by De Fontaine's assistant Mel. However, this awakens Sentry's dark side, known as the Void, which turns everybody nearby into shadows that engulfs New York City in darkness. Seeing the only way to stop the Void is to reach Bob from inside, Belova enters the shadow dimension. After going through her past events, she reaches Bob before her teammates join them and head to the timeline where Bob was being experimented on by Kuala Lumpur. There they encounter the Void, who immobilizes the team before Bob attacks him. Seeing that the fight is turning Bob into the Void, the team breaks free and intervenes, convincing Bob that he is not alone. This causes the Void to disappear and the shadows and darkness to return to normal. As the Thunderbolts prepare to capture De Fontaine, she lures them into a press conference and introduces them as the new Avengers. In a post-credit scene 14 months later, we get some reveals, which we will talk about later. Guys, that is the Thunderbolts. One last thing overall, it is a 2025 American superhero film based off the Marvel Comics team, the Thunderbolts, produced by Marvel Studios, distributed by Walt Disney Motion Pictures. It is the 36th film in the MCU. The film was directed by Jake Schreier from a screenplay by Eric Pearson and Joanna Calo, and stars the ensemble cast, which a great ensemble cast, which we will get into a bit later. But guys, that is the Thunderbolts. I want to get you guys' immediate reactions to this film, what your thoughts were on it. Lacey, I want to start things off with the Queen of Movie Foo. She is the Queen. She should get first billing.
Okay, I think that they did Taskmaster wrong. They did her dirty. And I was unaware, because I had not seen any of the comics on this. I did not know that the main villain was going to be depression. I know we're going to talk about it later, but that is genius. Okay. I'll just say that. As far as everything else, loved all of the bits and bobs and all that kind of stuff, and we'll get into the nitty gritty later, but yeah.
John, what were your initial thoughts on the film as you came out of it?
Yeah, I going in, I wasn't sure whether it was going to be great, middling, awful, or whatever. I thought from all the promotion that I was going to enjoy it. But was it going to be just a placeholder, or was it going to have something important to say? And it was kind of a mixture of all of those things. It wasn't the most, somebody said, I saw one review saying it's the best Marvel movie ever, or the best Marvel movie in a decade. I wouldn't go anywhere near as far as that, but it also wasn't a mess. It was fun. It had lots of action. It had some deeper stuff in it as well. The structure was a little all over the place, but it was fun. And that's the fun is the word that I keep coming back to on it. And perhaps, once in a while we get movies that are more than fun, that are, landmark epic movies. But this was fun. This was something of a placeholder for some of the bigger stuff that's about to happen. But I enjoyed it. And that's good enough. It could have been an absolute horrible mess. And in some ways, it was a gloriously fun, action-filled mess.
Kevin, before I get to you, I want to just give my thoughts in real quick, because you have a few points we've talked about off mic that I think will sound better after I give what I think. I have been very excited for this film. I think this was a film that I love these characters. I love bringing in the misfits together of the MCU. I really thought this was a film that could kind of, I don't want to say turn the ship around, but help right the ship of where the MCU is going. And I feel confident in saying this. Is it the best film in the history of the MCU? Not even close. Is it the best film since Endgame? I put forth an argument. It is the best film since Endgame. I think some people might consider Spider-Man Far From Home. There's a couple other things. But what I really liked about this film is it shows people that Marvel Studios still knows how to make a movie from start to finish without throwing in a ton of special effects or making it a special effects extravaganza. And in ways it really did feel like a complete film, where we're not just, this is something just to lead us to the next step, even though we still have that in this film. But it really felt like we got really good fleshed out characters. We got a complete story out of it. And yeah, while there's still more questions left, that's just like the comics. But I just feel like this is a movie that's kind of starting a new direction for the MCU and how they're going to present their films going forward and how they're going to make their films going forward. And I think for a lot of different reasons we have that. And this movie did exceed my expectations, and I had high expectations for it. It was fun. The cast is outstanding. I cannot wait to see more of this cast. And I think there's a lot of fun to be had with these characters. And lastly, I just want to say this. Kevin, you and I have talked about this quite a bit. One of the things I think Marvel is genius at with their movies is they use their movies to find a way to take things that maybe didn't go over as popular and elevate those particular projects. This movie,
you're referring to past movies that haven't been as favorable,
correct? Or even shows now at this point with the Disney. Yeah. This movie, without a doubt, I think elevates already what I thought was a great show in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and it also elevates the Black Widow movie. And I think that's a great thing that Marvel has done here. It's made that show and that movie more important because of the characters involved, and it makes people want to go back and learn more about these characters. Maybe they didn't watch those particular things before, now they're going to. And it's just a brilliant job by Marvel. But I love this movie, Kevin.
Agree. I really liked it too for similar reasons that you said as well. I was always a big fan of Falcon and Winter Soldier, but it made U.S. Agent likable, even though maybe at first he got called out for being a dick, which I thought was very funny. The genius about this movie is twofold for me. First off, it spent a lot of time on character development and less time on long, drawn out fights. And I thought that the action scenes were a good amount of time, almost like perfect time, and lent a lot to developing the characters and getting to know the Thunderbolts. Because your average person going in to see this, that's not going to watch all the TV shows and stuff like that, it is not as familiar with them. And I'm coming from a point too where I'm an MCU guy. I don't go back and read all the comics. I leave you guys to fill me in on that. So I rely on the MCU to tell me the story and to get to know these things. The second thing that was genius about this film is that the villain himself, Bob, well, as he turns into a villain for a little bit, Bob and / the Sentry and the Void, using his powers to make everyone go back and relive horrible moments in their lives, also at the same time letting us know as fans, learning more about them. That scene with John Walker just, being in this, looks like a one-room apartment with his wife and his kid after being shamed about what happened to him, throughout the media in Falcon Winter Soldier, and he's not in a good place. And him being taken back, that tells you something about him and makes him sympathetic, wherein you may not have felt that so much in the Falcon and Winter Soldier. And I thought that, with everyone kind of going through their past that we didn't really know about, I thought was really good. And when it comes to all of the, I'm not one of those people that's saying it was the best movie since Endgame or anything like that, but when you look at all the 36 or 37 Marvel films that are out there and you're ranking your best to the least favorite in your own headcanon order, with maybe Endgame being, or Infinity War being up there, or Winter Soldier, and then you got, some of the lesser favorite ones down there, I'm just going to throw Eternals down there underneath the bus. To me, this reaches up towards the top a little bit more for me. I'm not sure exactly where, but it was fun and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on everything you said there, Kevin. But we're going to take a minute too, because I want to get into the cast and the characters a little bit more, because not everybody is familiar with the Thunderbolts like they are with a Captain America or a Thor. So let's get into a little bit of the cast and some character descriptions here. And first off, obviously, we were going to have Yelena, the new incarnation of the Black Widow. We are actually going to have a deeper conversation about Yelena later in the podcast. It's something I wanted to talk about, but kind of a quick little rundown. Just she was trained in the Red Room, obviously Scarlett Johansson, Natasha Romanoff's sister. She has played the character before in the MCU, obviously in Black Widow and in Hawkeye. And she is dealing with the trauma of the death of her sister, Natasha Romanoff, in Avengers Endgame. And it's been a carrying story that's been going on since really the Black Widow film. And so we're going to get a little bit more into that. But next up is somebody all MCU fans should know. At this point, he's probably the grandfather figure in the MCU. I mean, he's a little over 100. I mean, come on, it's Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. He's been popping up a lot. I really wish Sebastian Stan would have gotten something more over this period. We obviously had Falcon and Winter Soldier, but of course, if you're familiar with the Winter Soldier, he has an enhanced super soldier with a cybernetic arm, who's kind of the de facto leader of the Thunderbolts. He was presumed killed in action during World War II. He emerged in the present day as a brainwashed assassin before his programming was removed, and has since been elected as a member of the United States Congress. Stan compares Barnes to Jack Nicholson's character Randall McMurphy in the film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He's saying that they were both coming into a chaotic and degenerate group whose members needed to be united. So we've got that. Next up, Kevin, you mentioned him, John Walker, the U.S. agent played by Wyatt Russell. He's, again, another enhanced super soldier and member of the Thunderbolts. He's a former decorated captain of the U.S. Army Rangers who was chosen by the U.S. government to become Steve Rogers' successor as Captain America before receiving an other than honorable discharge at the end of the Falcon and Winter Soldier, until a certain Miss DeFontaine recruited him for other measures. Next up, Lacey might not be happy about this. I just got to say this. The Taskmaster, played by Olga Kurylenko, an assassin with photographic reflexes that allow her to mimic opponents' fighting styles. She was formerly controlled by her father, Drekhyov, to complete missions for the Red Room before being freed of Romanoff in the film Black Widow 2021. I'm just going to say there's a reason why you don't see the Taskmaster in a lot of the newer media that's out for the Thunderbolts. I'm just going to
remind me. I got a text from Kat, because he hadn't seen the movie before I did, that I want to share about this.
Okay, yeah, I was actually going to get to that, because our good friend Kat Cedar, who joined us for our Daredevil coverage and covers a lot of the Marvel stuff with us, he's a huge Marvel fan. Taskmaster is one of his all-time favorite characters. He was not exactly thrilled with this version of Taskmaster from Black Widow, not because she was female, but because of a lot of different things they did with the character. Kevin, I want you to go from here and explain.
Well, do you want to cover the other characters first, and then we'll come back and give our thoughts on the cast?
Oh, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, you're on a roll. I didn't want to interrupt you, so go.
Next up, we have the Sentry, performed by Louis Pullman, of course, Bill Pullman's son. he doesn't. He might give a speech in this. I don't think it's quite as powerful as his dad's from Independence Day, but still, he's a superpowered individual who suffers from amnesia. As the Void, a version of Sentry completely shrouded in shadows, he is invincible, spreads darkness, and can turn people into shadows. Next up, we have somebody who's kind of in the background of this, but had a very important role as I'm not going to pronounce her name because I don't want to butcher it, and I have too much respect for the actress. But the character's name is Mel. She was Valentina Allegra de Fontaine's assistant. There's possibly more to Mel than meets the eye, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. But this was a fun character who had a couple of really shining moments in this film. And maybe the man who kind of steals the movie a little bit, the Red Guardian, of course, played by Hopper himself, David Harbour. Of course, a member of the Thunderbolts. He is a Russian super soldier counterpart to Captain America and the father figure to Yelena Belova. Harbour said the films further explores the complex relationship between Shostakov and Belova that was introduced in The Black Widow. He noted that Belova cannot stand Shostakov, but she needs someone to help her feel complete, and Shostakov is able to fill that role. And also, too, we have Hannah John-Kamen as the ghost. She might be my TV movie wife. Kevin, keep your hands to yourself over there. A member of the Thunderbolts who can phase through objects. John-Kamen said the film shows a different side of the character following her introduction in the film Ant-Man and the Wasp in 2018. The ghost no longer is in a constant state of molecular equilibrium and can control her powers with calmness and divisiveness. And finally, guys, we have, of course, the amazing Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, a Contessa and the director of the Central Intelligence Agency who brings together the members of the Thunderbolts. The film establishes De Fontaine as the one who bought Avengers Tower, now referred to as Watchtower, from Tony Stark in the film Spider-Man Homecoming. Julia Louis-Dreyfus described De Fontaine as someone who is after power, control, and just generally she wants to kick ass in the Marvel Universe. And I just need to throw this in because in one interview, somebody asked if De Fontaine would get along with her character from Veep, and she said no, they'd absolutely kill each other. So, guys, I want your thoughts on the cast. Who are some of your favorite character moments out of this bunch? This is a phenomenal cast, in my opinion, and I just loved everything across the board. Kevin, I actually want to start with you on this.
No, go to our guest first.
Okay.
I want to talk.
John. Okay, John. What are your thoughts on the cast, and who are some of your favorite characters?
I mean, it's obviously Florence Pugh's film. I think she's great. She's a more grounded. I mean, Scarlett Johansson is this very kind of glamorous looking individual, very traditional, attractive. The thing I love about Florence Pugh is that she's almost realistically, she's more both if you see her being interviewed and in a lot of the roles she's done, she's more earthy, a more interesting. She portrays more interesting characters sometimes, and I love the fact that she's been given a bit of screen time in variety of, in Hawkeye and this and Black Widow, just to do something different with the character. It doesn't feel like they've said, hey, Scarlett Johansson isn't around anymore, let's get the next most glamorous Vogue person to do this. It's like, let's do something interesting. Let's get somebody who's interesting, who's attractive, but who's also feels sort of a different and a counterpart. And I think that's been a very wise move, and it's definitely her movie. The thing is, everybody's good in this movie. Everybody does what they need to do. I have an inkling that there's a bit too many characters flying around, so some of them are better serviced than others. I don't think we learn a lot more about Ghost than we did in the Ant-Man films. Interesting character, but I don't think there's a huge amount of character development for her. You've got David Harbour as again stealing, as you say, almost every scene that he's in. It could have been annoying after a while, but he does it with just such scene-chewing bravado and glory, that it's hard not to love that character as well. De Fontaine strikes me as a cross between as an American politician Tulsi Gabbard. It feels like Tulsi Gabbard meets Samuel L. Jackson. Not always, but I was writing my review of it, and I said it's Tulsi Gabbard doing cosplay in Samuel L. Jackson, which kind of sums up the character, I think. She's a delicious kind of not the villain, but not the nice person, but somebody who the archetype that's suddenly out of their depth and yet paddling for everything to stay ahead of everybody else. Sebastian Stan's great. again, I feel they haven't known quite what to do with Bucky. Is he going to be the Winter Soldier? Is he going to be the mentor for Sam? Here, he's the kind of person who is drafted in to bring them all in. And the whole political side of him being a congressman doesn't sit deliberately. It doesn't sit, and he doesn't like being in that role. But it does feel like the MCU doesn't quite know what to do with him, even though he's a great character, and I love watching Sebastian Stan, just do everything that he does as the Winter Soldier and Bucky. Bob we'll be talking about the Sentry later. That's very interesting. And also, because of the casting, it's very interesting that Stephen Yeun from The Walking Dead was going to play the character. And then it didn't work, it didn't work out to timing or whatever. And it would be interesting to surmise how that would have been different, if it would have been drastically different, or what he might have brought to it. But I think the example that we do get, it's quite a nuanced, likable character. It's a wonderful mismatch movie. He works all these characters and all these actors who are very, very good, and kind of throws them together. And I said glorious mess earlier on. I don't mean that as an insult, really. It's just deliberately, it's a movie that's not a clockwork movie where everything works exactly as it's supposed to. A bit like the Avengers. Once the Avengers are in together, everything's kind of reasonably going really well. This is the opposite. This is the Dollar Tree, Dollar General version of something where it's like, we'll get by with this. Well, we'll do it. And I like it. I mean, I like that the characters are all not the better, not in the prime of their lives, not at the height of their game. That's interesting. I wouldn't want to necessarily watch that type of movie all the time, but when you watch really good actors performing interesting people and when it's interesting, it's not always, as I say, not always picture perfect, but more complex and fractured and damaged characters. It's watching the character dynamics that I think work, and watching really good actors do it. As I say, some are service better than others, I think. But what everybody's asked to do, they do really well. And yeah, you can't ask for more than that, really.
Lacey, what about you? Who are some of your favorite characters to come out of the Thunderbolts?
Okay, I like the fact that this is kind of a Marvel's answer to the Suicide Squad, right? These are all bad guys.
Very bad guys are shades of gray characters.
Right. Well, that's the thing. These are all reformed bad guys, so it's a little bit different than Suicide Squad. But I mean, let's call it what it is. Also, I'm very confused as to which whether DC or Marvel used Watchtower first, because
they both used it, haven't they? Birds of Prey and Marvel for yeah.
And the small
nerd cred on John there, nice.
Yeah, well, and nerd.
I just to help clarify something, in Marvel Comics, the Watchtower is the tower that keeps Sentry in check.
Yeah,
and
right.
So if you want to go with Sentry, it gets a little technically funky, because if you want to go by Sentry history, it's way back in the day in Golden Age of Comics, but really it was only created like about 10 years ago.
He's just got the nerd prize off me. Sorry, Kevin.
Gotcha. But then again, in Smallville, that becomes Chloe's character. She becomes Watchtower for the Arrowverse.
It's just a popular comic name.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyway,
whatever happened to Chloe?
Yeah.
We're not going there. Sorry.
We don't talk about Bruno or Chloe.
Yeah.
Okay, so Florence Pugh, I love it. She's fantastic. I like her in everything. Anything she does. She's got such a wide range, and I adore it. I like that she was kind of like, pulling the grief stuff out. And I know we're going to talk about that later, but I think that she did really well with that. I think her character there's a delicate line that you have to kind of tread, because it could get real dark real fast. I love Bucky. I've loved Bucky from the beginning. Sebastian Stan's awesome. He's amazing. I will say that as far as Taskmaster is concerned and her fate, I think that Ghost, Hannah John-Kamen, she's the only person who could have taken out Taskmaster, because Taskmaster, being the reflexive, or whatever you want to call it, mimic, she can't mimic what Ghost can do. And so realistically, out of all of them, when Yelena says, "Oh, so we all just punch and shoot?" Well, the only person who doesn't just punch and shoot is Ghost, because she can actually, vibe or whatever you call it. And so that's kind of an interesting side to play. I love David Harbour. He's so funny and he's so charming and so charismatic and just cannot read a room to save his life. Like can't read a room at all. And I love that about his character. I think that everyone is cast so well. I liked Wyatt Russell playing against type. Like he's always this, in interviews, he's like the nicest guy ever. And in this, he has to play like this just kind of like dick, like just a hard ass who just doesn't, he's got a hard part to play just because he has to toe that line, kind of walk that line of being, the jerk, but also still like want people to pay attention to the character. So, yeah. Those are my favorites. And Louis Pullman looks so much like his dad. It's crazy pants.
There's a few times where, especially in the eyes, I saw that.
Yeah. And he's fantastic. I hadn't seen him in anything else. This is the first time I think I've seen him.
Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, yeah.
He was Bob in Top Gun
Bob.
Maverick.
Nice.
He also played Bob.
Right on. Very cool. But yeah, he's great. I mean, I kind of, with some of those kind of like love the purse, love the shoes, love the whole thing,
Mr. Reitzel, your favorite Thunderbolts?
I'm going to start off with Florence real quick as Yelena. We've got backstory with her, obviously, in Black Widow, and she stole the scenes, and especially when she's mocking, Black Widow herself, Scarlett Johansson, on her superhero landing. I thought that was just so funny. And she does, and you're right. She just seemed kind of grounded more, and I like that about her too. But man, she cooked Lena when it came to acting in certain scenes in this, and that's the one thing that I love about MCU in general is they get some really good actors with some really good scenes, and it's a crime, in my opinion, that the acting award people overlook these MCU movies because they're really missing it on some of these certain scenes. And so, yeah, I love Florence for that. It's good to see Bucky back. Bucky, I feel like he's just been kind of like doing, he's been in limbo. He's been such a great character in a lot of his scenes. But, and we've gotten his backstory, obviously. But I feel like, he had a moment where could he be, Captain America? Because I know in the comics, I guess he had its moments there. But I feel like the MCU isn't quite ready to do that because we have one. It's Anthony Mackie. And that was obviously proven really, really well with his character in Falcon and Winter Soldier. But I feel like he's the experienced warrior when it comes to dealing with the bigger picture. And it's nice to see that Yelena is stepping up there, but he's the guy that needs to come in and, but he sees both sides. He sees the war and he sees the political side of it. It was nice to see that juggling from the beginning there. Wyatt Russell I thought was great in this. He was likable, even though, he's kind of a jerk, but I love the quips that he was doing and he got called out on it as well. It was, I feel like he had his moments as well. I did want to mention real quick regarding Taskmaster. And I want to put his picture or her picture up here. Give me a second here. Moving this, Kyle. I got it. So as we all know, my good friend Kat Cedar, who's been a contributor here on the Fandom Podcast Network, especially the superhero stuff with True Believers, one of his favorite characters in all of the comics, next to Hawkeye and Moon Knight. Thank you, Kyle. Is Taskmaster. And he was not a fan of how they portrayed Taskmaster in the Black Widow movie and tying that into the Red Room and stuff like that. And that was very disappointing as a fan. He wasn't the only one that put it that way. And I just want to say he knew that I saw the movie first, and he sends me one text. He goes, is Taskmaster still lame? And I said, I think you will like what they did. He says, or you could just tell me so I don't have to look it up. And he says, they kill that Taskmaster. He says, thank God. So, yeah, and, you're right. I think that Ghost is probably the only one that could have killed Taskmaster. And I thought that was a smart move. They did that. Whether they do another Taskmaster, I don't know. But that was a disappointment for a lot of fans, including my good friend Kat. I'm not a huge fan of the way they did Taskmaster personally, but I don't know all the comics. But I was kind of surprised they killed off Taskmaster right away. Reasons, I'm sure. But anyway, Louis Pullman, great. Thought he was awesome. There's a certain innocence that comes out of him in his eyes, especially during some very dramatic moments. And I thought that really sold his character and made him very, very sympathetic. I was very curious about I'm going to try to pronounce her name, Viswanathan, as Mel, Valentina Allegra's assistant. I thought she was great, caught in the middle here. I hope we see more of her. And Hannah John-Kamen as Ghost, okay, serviceable. I like that we got a little kind of spelling out of her powers, I guess. Need to see more to make me kind of care a little bit more, but she was serviceable for me, in my opinion. David Harbour was probably my favorite, if you're going to ask me, Kyle, for all the reasons you guys have talked about. David Harbour is us. We're seeing through his eyes. He wants to be part of a team. He wants to be part of superheroes. He wants a name for our superhero group. That's great. We're all thinking that. We all want that. And we see that. We all want to be on a Wheaties box. And he's so proud that he is. And I love that Julia Louis-Dreyfus is basically the villain trying to pull the strings, whether she gets a chance to do that more going forward. I love the line at the end when Yelena says, we got you, basically we own you. And I love that scene. So that's my take on the main members.
Okay. Just for me real quick, we're going to have a deeper discussion about Florence Pugh in this show. And I'm going to really go into my thoughts on Florence Pugh then. So I'm going to put that aside. David Harbour seals this movie. David Harbour, every time he's on screen, you're rooting for him. You love him. I love how they have the Red Guardian kind of fanboying out over the Winter Soldier in this movie. It's like, the Winter Soldier.
It's Bucky.
like the man crush that's going on. And then even US agents like, it's Bucky. It's like, so you got all that with Sebastian Stan. It's great. I love Sebastian Stan as Winter Soldier. He's one of my favorite characters. I love when he teams up with Anthony Mackie. Falcon and Winter Soldier was phenomenal. Louis Pullman is another person who steals this movie. This movie is owned by 3 people, truthfully. And we'll get more into the Century here. Like you said, Kevin, it's the innocence about him that he portrays on screen that makes this work so well. And it's great. But yeah, this cast altogether just worked phenomenally. And again, I go back to every MCU thing. One of the things the MCU has always done right, in my opinion, is they nail the casting on their projects. It's very rare they have a misstep in casting. We don't talk about Terrence Howard. That's just something we don't do around here. But no, the cast is phenomenal, and there's so many great things to get into. In fact, you know what, guys? I'm going to have Kevin activate the Tesseract so we can kind of phase into the next phase. But Kevin, before you activate that, I'm warning you, stay away from the middle of the soccer field. I know what could happen. Okay, guys, I have been digging through some things and have a little Marvel trivia coming out of Thunderbolts. So, Kevin, if you want to help me out here with some of these two, I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm going to leave things off because there is a great little trivia a lot of people didn't pick up on until after they saw the movie, but it's Valentina's assistant Mel. Valentina's assistant Mel, played by Geraldine Viswanathan. If I'm butchering that, I apologize because I really love this actress. It's a tongue tire for me, but she's a bit of an enigma in the film, both helping and hindering the Thunderbolts. Her first name, though, has led to some fans speculating that she may turn out to be a little bit more than what people think, because a lot of people are thinking she might be Melissa Gold, a.k.a. Songbird, who was one of the original Thunderbolts in the comics. It was actually in the original Thunderbolts, they were a bunch of villains who were portraying themselves as superheroes. Her character's villain's name was Screaming Mimi, and she became Songbird and has become a pretty mainstay hero in the Marvel comics. There is really no firm evidence of this, but it's something to watch. However, while surprisingly not outright confirmed, Mel is showing wearing a bird necklace, supporting the idea that she might be Songbird, as in the original Thunderbolts comics. So something to keep an eye on as we get more with these characters. I would be very intrigued to do that. Songbird has always been one of the Thunderbolts fans' favorite characters, so something to keep an eye on about it. But Kevin, I have some real estate questions in trivia. Could you help me out with that? Lacey, have a quick question.
Yeah, before we go to the next one, I want Lacey to kick in here.
Yeah, I just have a question about Songbird. Does Songbird have powers, or is she?
No, she does have powers. They are a sound power. She's able to make sounds into like hard objects.
Kind of like Black Canary.
Yeah, not quite like Black Canary. Just think of it as a mix of Green Lantern, but using sound.
Oh, okay. All right. So she's going to have to go through some trauma to become a Thunderbolt. Okay. Got it.
Mr. Reitzel?
Oh, I didn't know who she was, and I was curious to learn more. Yeah, Marvel always kind of has a thing where they'll kind of bring someone in to tease that they could be someone. Sometimes it pays off. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
John, did you know about that character at all?
No, I didn't. And the character was the one thing that was a little frustrating for me was I didn't know one way or another whether this was a character that pre-existed. But I get the feeling there's probably some scenes on the cutting room floor because it almost felt like, is she a hero? Is she a villain? Is she them in? And it wasn't really clear even in the movie whether she was luring them in, whether she was going against the Contessa or whatever. And I'm going like, I'm not quite sure how to read this. Maybe there's a scene coming up which clarifies whether she's helping both sides, playing both sides, just trying to survive the day. And that scene never really came that convinced me one way or the other. So I have a feeling there's probably a couple of scenes maybe that were trimmed away, or they're keeping it for later and stuff. But a good character, but I just didn't quite get a handle on what role she was supposed to be playing other than really sort of giving information out to both sides at key parts of the film.
I think those are good points, John, and I can definitely see that. But Kevin, we got an answer to a big question about real estate in the MCU with our next trivia. Here,
This is true. This is true. Avengers Tower, the former Avengers Tower in Manhattan, now belongs to OXE and has been converted into their base, which provides a backdrop for much of the action in the film's final act. The Century Void strikes at the heart of New York City is no coincidence. Thunderbolts repeatedly nod towards the original Avengers film, so it makes sense that the gangs battle with the Void before everything goes a bit trippy. Takes place at the same site as the Battle of New York, where the original Avengers once fought the Chitauri. So I got two things to say, Kyle. Let me say them first.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I want to know what is OXE. I don't know who that is, but also too, maybe don't live in Manhattan anymore, or you get some type of new insurance when you do.
Yeah, I think yeah. If you're going to live near whatever it's going to be, Avengers Tower, Watchtower, whatever it's going to be, yeah, I'm thinking rent rates might be kind of low there, but you better have really good superheroes.
I mean, seriously, John? Are you living in Manhattan after this?
Not at all, but I was looking at the tower, and I presumed originally that Unit in Doctor Who had actually bought the tower and reconstructed it in the middle of London. If you've seen any of the Doctor Who.
So, I want to hit a couple things here because they talk about, and there's several scenes within the Watchtower where the Thunderbolts pays tribute to the Avengers, including Valentina stepping on the iconic Tony Stark making a drink while she talks to the villain or the rival, or in his case, the heroes coming to stop her. A lot of other little scenes in this, but here's the thing: you asked about OXE, Kevin, and John, I think you'll be able to maybe see where I'm going with this. I think OXE is kind of thing that was kind of created for the MCU because I think they really wanted to use another company, but they're not ready to go there yet, yet because of Spider-Man. Because I really think the intent of OXE, John, was to be Oscorp.
Oscorp, yeah, I think so.
And if you're not familiar with Oscorp, Oscorp is the company owned by Norman Osborn, who, of course, is the Green Goblin and Spider-Man's arch nemesis. But Oscorp is an incredibly powerful company within Marvel Comics, and I really think that's where they wanted to go. But I think there's some stuff that's happening with the new Spider-Man film and maybe some plans ahead because there still are Norman Osborn rumors floating out there. And so we could see something. But John, do you agree with me? Do you think that's...
I think that's often
really
the case. There's a lot of placeholder, and even in the comics, there was Roxxon, which was very much like Exxon in real life. So they often play with that. But I agree, probably. I mean, I don't know what the rights issues are. I mean, I was hearing recently that like Vincent D'Onofrio confirmed he cannot appear in the movies as the Kingpin. even though he's a Marvel character. So I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes about what can be used. Obviously, Oscorp can be used in Spider-Man. Whether they legally can use it, I don't know. Otherwise, they may just be keeping it, as I say, and keeping their powder dry for the next Spider-Man movie.
Yeah. So I found that a little bit curious. But two, the next piece of trivia I think was a little fun kind of thing to Avengers 2. At least one god. As Sentry starts to go rogue and turn on Valentina, he notes that the original MCU lineup of the Avengers included at least one god, a direct nod to Thor, of course, the Asgardian god of thunder, because Sentry is considering himself a god. And you have that, and you know, I think it's still a little shot at the Thunderbolts for a little lack of power on the team, too. They could have probably used a Thor for dealing with Sentry. I'm just saying here. But Mr. Reitzel, I want you to hit this next one because there's some very interesting trivia about one and only Florence Pugh that I thought was absolutely amazing.
Florence Pugh actually jumped off the Merdeka 118 floors in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, which is the second tallest building in the world, 2,227 feet tall, with no CGI or a stunt double. Pugh said that the stunt required so much willpower and adrenaline that, quote, I fell asleep for 3 hours after I did the stunt because my brain went down.
A little more to add to that, too. Florence Pugh actually loves heights and wanted to be the one to jump off the Merdeka 18 building in the opening. And she insistently emailed Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige about not using a stunt double. As we got closer and closer to the shooting, they said they don't think it's going to happen because it's crazy. It's a crazy insurance ordeal. And obviously, we're not going to throw me off the second tallest building in the world. Pugh said. And then according to her, and excuse my language, but I was like, what the fuck? Of course we are. We have to do that. I was being a sassy Karen, emailing Kevin and saying it's going to do wonders for the press tour. She continued. We have to do this. We're going to have 3 women break 3 different Guinness World Records, and we'll do this and this. I had to keep on pushing, and then they're like, okay, if you want to fall off the second tallest building in the world, we'll figure it out for you. So major props to Florence Pugh.
Didn't they film it on the last day because they wanted to make sure she was available for in case there was a problem?
I think that's what they did. I think that's one of the things they did.
Something that Tom Cruise does not do.
No. My wife watched that scene and just went, nope. Nope, not going to happen.
Yep. Okay. Next up, we talked about this a little casting thing. John brought this up. Stephen Yeun from The Walking Dead was originally cast as Robert Reynolds in the Sentry, but after filming was delayed due to the SAG-AFTRA strikes, he had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts and was later replaced with Lewis Pullman. He later expressed disappointment of not being able to do that film and hopes to be cast in another Marvel movie. I don't want to go into this a whole bunch because this has kind of been a topic, but I just want to say this. I don't think Stephen Yeun pulls off Bob near as well as what Lewis Pullman did, because I think with Stephen Yeun, the problem is we're so used to him as Glenn from Walking Dead and some of his other roles. I think he wouldn't have had that necessarily innocence, and he might have been a little bit too quippy with some of his remarks compared to how Lewis Pullman came across. So I think this is one of those cases. I love Stephen Yeun, but I think this is one of the cases where the casting change ended up being very much the right call. So that's just kind of my personal opinion on that. But Mr. Reitzel, one other interesting little piece of this, would you care to elaborate on for us?
Short and sweet, the final film of Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What I find interesting about this personally is that with the wacky way that the universe of the MCU has been going, I had no idea this was the final film, and I'm confused at what was the first one, and it's been a weird Phase 5. Lacey.
Honestly, I thought we were in like Phase 7 by now. Like, I had no idea. After I knew that Phase 4 was coming to an end, and then we've had like 10 movies or something. And I was like, oh, okay. I do think that Stephen Yeun, I think that he could have pulled it off. I think that I think the early Glenn shows the innocence that he can play. I think that it may be character. What do they call that when people, like being pigeonholed because he
typecasted
for a long typecasting, yeah. But yeah, I don't know what phase we're in. But the thing is, they had the cool box sets, right? The first box set was the briefcase for Phase 1, and the second box set was the the Guardians of the Galaxy, the time, the thing that the stone was in, you know, the big ball. And then they were like, nah. And then they stopped doing big fun box sets.
Next one's gonna be a popcorn bucket.
Yeah.
Right.
Real quick, guys, too. I have one more piece of trivia because it ties into the asterisks. Of course, the asterisks. Turns out there's a reason why the asterisk by Thunderbolts, because in saving her own neck, Valentina publicly declares the Thunderbolts to be her new Avengers, explaining the title's asterisk while also making the group another classic comics team entirely. The comics New Avengers debuted in 2005, which the Century was also a part of that group of Avengers. Now, that group of Avengers was a little bit more well-known and powerful, consisting of Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Luke Cage, as well as the Century. So they might add a little bit more power boost, but that is why we had the asterisks at the end of Thunderbolts, because these guys were going to be the new Avengers towards the end. Yes, Mr. Mosby.
Wow, I gather that was it. I was watching the movie, and earlier in the movie, I kind of went, oh, that's why there's an asterisk. When they're climbing up the chute and they're doing their back-to-back things, they form an asterisk. So that's another reason as well. So I thought at that point in the movie, I thought, oh, that's the key. And then I realized, obviously,
I didn't even get that. Did not even get that. Well done. A nerd cred to you.
There's a symmetry to that. I don't know. I want my dollar.
I see what you did there, Kyle. I see what you did there. Inside joke.
Mr. Reitzel, can you power up that Tesseract? It's time to go into phase 3.
Oh, it is time. Beware.
Okay, guys, we are talking about Thunderbolts. This is our full reaction show. Now we're going to dive into some of our main plot points. This is where we're going to get into a couple different topics. And first and foremost, for me, guys, this is maybe, in my opinion, one of the most important topics out there for me that I wanted to make sure we address. And that is, we've talked about her quite a bit through the show, but Florence Pugh, and I'm going to give my thoughts on this now. Florence Pugh is freaking amazing in this film. She carries this film in a way I don't think anybody thought she could have, especially with that particular character. And how she elevates Yelena in this is phenomenal. And I am a huge Florence Pugh fan. I think she's one of the best young actresses out there. And I'll be honest, I got a little fan crush on her, especially when she has that wet slick back hair look going on the hair. There's something about that I'm in love with, but she's phenomenal in this. And I have listened and read a lot of reactions to this on different podcasts, different articles. And I'm noticing a trend. And I'm curious, I want to get your guys' thoughts on this because it's twofold. One, a lot of people are saying this is the best handoff of a legacy character in the MCU, from Scarlett Johansson to Florence Pugh. And there are some people who are saying Florence Pugh might be a better Black Widow than what Scarlett Johansson was. And I think there's a credence to that because we've been with Yelena for her entire ride. When Scarlett was brought in, she was already established as the Black Widow. We knew who she was. But the other thing is this. Is Florence Pugh now at the level for the MCU when we go back to where Scarlett Johansson was, to where Chris Evans was, to where Hemsworth was? Is she one of the key faces now for the MCU? I'm not going to say she's Robert Downey Jr. level because he's on a whole other level when it comes to the MCU. There's nobody that, maybe Evans is probably the one that would come closest to that, but our Robert Downey Jr. is just on a whole other level. I want your guys' thoughts not only on Florence Pugh as Black Widow, but what her importance is now, both as a character and as the actress in the MCU. Lacey, I'm going to start with you on this.
Excuse me. I think that, I think that they may have been worried because Black Widow didn't do well. I mean, theatrically. So I think that they kind of pulled a little girl. Excuse me, I have been choking on air today.
We'll come back to you, Lacey. John, give me your thoughts on Florence.
Yeah, I mean, she's the breakout of the whatever phase we're on of the MCU, and I think it's telling that what's happened with almost all the other characters, particularly in this movie, not necessarily everybody, but deliberately, I think a lot of the characters that are legacy characters, the new legacy characters, are shown to be not poor or pale imitations, but not as good as naturally good at the job as their predecessors. They're having to earn it, which works on a meta level as well. I think what they've done with Florence's character, who I don't know whether there's going to be referred to as the Black Widow or the White Widow going forward or whatever, but she's just as good. And from the outset, she's been just as good, but a different variation on it, not a copy, but somebody who's not inferior in any way, shape, or form. She's not really at any point. She's battling herself in this movie, her instincts. It's not like that, am I going to be as good as my sister? It's not quite that, and I think that would have been wrong. It's the, can I be redeemed like my sister was? Everybody else is or a lot of the other people are like, I'm measuring up to, can I be the new Captain America, etc. And the Red Guardian wanting to be the thing that he really can't be. And she's the one character that has the most interesting arc because she's fighting herself. She's not comparing herself ideally to Natasha. She wants to be as redeemable as Natasha, but she wants to be her own person. And I think that's a huge thing. And I think perhaps that's what Florence Pugh's, it has the advantage of doing is really creating a new character that is fighting herself rather than trying to live up to something else. And I think that's kind of important. She's an A-list actress now. You look at the type of movie she's making, they may not be able to get her, in 4 or 5 years' time, depending on scheduling. The MCU's been very lucky that because of the success that people have made time for, to be part of it, like Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Chris Evans. But scheduling is a realistic thing. And I just think she's a genuinely A-list actor. If you look at what the roles she's done, she can do pretty much anything, and she will always be interesting and vulnerable, strong, empathetic, not always likable all the time, but she can play all those beats, and she brings all of those to this film, and it makes her the breakout of it. Not saying everybody else isn't good, but she's definitely the most interesting character, the character you want to spend most time with.
Okay, Lacey, if you're good, we'll come back to you.
I can breathe now. I think that Marvel was maybe a little bit nervous because Black Widow didn't do very well theatrically. I don't know. I think that they may have pulled. I think they deliberately made sure that she wasn't the only female on the team this time. I think that they didn't want her to have to carry, that kind of symbolism, I guess. I loved her. I loved her character. I loved all of it. I think that I think she could have done this by herself. I don't think that the character Ghost, I think she was underused, if anything. And I think that, they knocked out, Taskmaster had like 4 minutes, I think, in the like, not even, and so I think when you look at that, I think it kind of gives a little bit more of a highlight to how well she is navigating being one of the focal points of the MCU now. I think that she and Bucky are probably the two key figures at this point. I think Bucky being in the last film with Sam gave it a little bit of a dual situation. I don't know what they're going to do with Captain America at this point. I know that you guys probably have a little bit more information on that because of the comics and whatnot, but I think that there is kind of a question about Bucky, because originally wasn't Bucky supposed to be the Captain America before Sam? Like,
in the comics, he actually was.
Yeah, it went 1, 2, 3, right? So now, like you were saying earlier, with trying to figure out where everyone fits in, because everyone loves Bucky and he's a fan favorite. I think that they kind of not jumped the shark, but like they jumped ahead a little bit. They kind of did a little pop there, which is fine. Decisions were made. But I think that even the way that Florence kind of bounces off of Bucky a little bit, I think that they kind of co-lead the group, I guess.
And Bucky is the strategist, Florence is the heart. So Yelena,
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then you've got, but she has an interesting relationship with each of the characters, right? She's the one that they kind of focus on how she reacts to the others. No one, you don't see like Ghost and John Walker having any arguments, or it's kind of, she's the one who's kind of deciding who, what she likes, and who, her relationships in this are kind of what you're looking at, what you're watching. So I think it's good. I think she's, like I said, she's amazing in everything. I never saw Midsummer, but Little Women, and I mean, she's been in so many things. What's the wrestling one that was so good? She was so good.
Fighting with my family.
Yes, Fighting with My Family. I didn't recognize her. I was like, who's this girl? She's amazing. Oh no, really? it was great. So I think that there's definitely more to come from her. And I don't think it's all going to be MCU, but I think she does lend a good, she's like Don said, she's an A-list. She's an A-lister now. Like she's not, she's able to decide what film she wants. She doesn't have to necessarily audition anymore. So
I'm beginning to think though that Marvel movies pay more.
Yeah. Ask your last Jeremy Renner about that, but that's
right. But the thing is, we've got 37 main characters in Doomsday coming up. A lot of them took, you didn't pay 20 million for a person on this. Like you schedule the number of days and that's what you get. I'm not saying they're working for scale, but they are, they're definitely.
There's also, let's be honest, there's also something to be said about being part of a Marvel movie, even though
absolutely
about it. But Kevin, I want your thoughts on Florence.
Florence, for me, when I first noticed how good of it, I saw Fighting with Your Family. I have that movie. It was great. I think that was your recommendation, Kyle. And I've seen her and stuff. I have not seen Midsummer because I don't want to. My wife has, says she's good in it. But the movie that I saw that really I'm like, she can act, is Don't Worry, Darling. I thought she was really good in that movie. And, I love the fact that in this film, though, that she kind of becomes a de facto leader kind of by choice. She's the one that says, we got to do this, and shut up and stop fighting, paraphrasing, of course. But looking at the big picture and realizing certain things. And I thought that Florence, is she the, one of the main players of the MCU going forward? Yes, I think that she should be. And she kind of exudes that in this film because, we're not going to have the heroes core that we had from the original Avengers film. And I think that she's one of those leaders that's going to come in and do that. Now, I've heard people say that, she's a better Black Widow than Scarlett Johansson. And we've gotten a lot more, in a short amount of time to learn about her character. I'm not going to go that way at all right now because Scarlett Johansson was fantastic. And until I see Florence's character of Black Widow going up against people like Thanos and world devastation type situations and working well and fighting really well with the weapons and the smartness that we saw from and a lot more of it that we saw from Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow. I'll answer that question later. Besides, Scarlett Johansson's character Black Widow made the ultimate sacrifice in one of the most heart-wrenching scenes throughout the entire MCU, next to Spider-Man dying in Iron Man's arms. When it comes to really acting and being with your best friend in, having to make the decision and fighting to see who's going to die first, that scene still wrecks me between her and Hawkeye, which makes me want a short side movie somewhere of what the hell happened in, Budapest. Thank you. The Budapest scene. Yes. The Budapest scene. But not to shortchange Florence at all. She was fantastic in this, and I hope she is given the lead as one of the Avenger leaders in this, and I hope she's paid accordingly too.
Yeah, I agree. Guys, I want to move on to the next topic here. We'll kind of pick things up a little bit here. There's a topic though, bringing this century to the big screen. This is a very convoluted character in Marvel Comics, and it's such a bizarre story, truly, with this character. And I want to just hit on a few things real quick. This character was basically created off of a Wizard magazine April Fool's joke. They posted an article on for their April edition of Wizard many years ago, where they said Marvel has found this lost comic in their vaults nobody knew about, created even before the Fantastic Four. It's this character of the century. He's supposed to be like the greatest superhero of all time, especially in Marvel Comics. People ran with this. They took it as a real thing and ran with it to the point where the character ended up having a miniseries and being created by Paul Jenkins, Rich Veitch, and Jay Lee. He made his debut in a 2005 issue Marvel Comics The Century miniseries. In that book, Reynolds discovered that his archenemy, the Void, was in fact another aspect of himself. You can find out more about the Century if you look into a Comics Explainer or a few other things. 5 years later, Brian Michael Bendis added the Century to a lineup of the New Avengers, a position he also tentatively gains at the end of Thunderbolts, although he doesn't appear to have a control of his powers yet. The Century was referred to as a Golden Guardian of Good. The Century was referred to by this somewhat cheesy moniker in the film, and this is a reference to one of the character's occasional nicknames in the comics. It is also said that he has the power of 1,000 exploding suns. One of the taglines, the Century in the comics, is that he has the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. So the movie Thunderbolts, he has a little bit of a power downgrade. And finally, Valentina also calls him Earth's mightiest hero, a riff on the Avengers tagline. Now, another thing that I found interesting is the Century creator, Paul Jenkins, has actually spoken out about this. And he says, Lewis is a super humble and pleasant guy, right? We got into a chat about it. We talked about it. I actually said to him, and I know this is probably inappropriate, but I went, mate, I don't know how to say this to you, except I'm really proud of you because I think what you did was you understood the why of this character and brought that, and that takes a lot of effort. That takes a lot of humility. He also went on to say, I respect the fact that Lewis was able to pull all of these things in that space that is a superhero movie. That is really hard for him and director Jake Schreier and Florence Pugh and all the other actors. It's really hard for them to do, but they were given that license and Jake pulled it all together. Jenkins went on to say, so I know it's a long answer, but the answer is Lewis shows this vulnerability. He shows the danger of the challenge that you have within the darkest part of you when it comes to the forefront. It's a modern day Jekyll and Hyde, but it's more nuanced than that. And I think he really nailed it. I'm super happy with him being the guy because it means something to him as well. He loved the character. And one of the other interesting things about this is that the Century, even in the comics, had an issue with addiction. And we've got a panel up from one of the Century stories. Mel confirms Bob's history, citing his delusions of grandeur, depression, abusive parents, and most notably his history of addiction. This mirrors the comics where Bob Reynolds was also a down-on-his-luck drug addict before drinking the Golden Century serum. And at the end of the movie, Bob mentions that while he is with the New Avengers, though he's without his powers, there's concerns he can't control them, because even in the comics, becoming the Century means the Void is coming. One can't exist without the other. And so they've really played up on this. They took a very convoluted character, John, and did a phenomenal job with putting him on the big screen.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most complex and interesting potential characters in the Marvel comics, never mind the MCU. And I think we've spoken about it before, that the only downside is that you've created one of the most fascinating dilemmas that really can't be solved. If you have your central premise is a Jekyll and Hyde and one cannot exist without the other, then there's only so many stories you can tell without changing that dynamic and losing that interesting dynamic. So you can only have a character, the bad side coming out so many times before you go, well, we've worked out a way to defeat him, or not, in which case you're not going to do that very much because the bad guy would win. So it's for me in the comics, the Century was a great idea and a great limited series. And I think the proof of the pudding is the fact that subsequent to that series, Marvel Comics really have tried everything they can. Well, okay, we're going to cure him, we're going to kill him, and then we're going to kill him again, and then cure him again, and so many different things. And they haven't really been able to escape the excellence of the original premise, because there's only so far you can go. My worry a little bit about this version is that they have possibly painted themselves into exactly the same corner. At the end, he's one of the characters that I'm going, oh, I'm glad he survived. I'm glad he's around. I'm not quite sure why he's around, because everything we've just been told in the previous 2 hours would suggest that he's going to be locked up somewhere and sedated for the rest of his life. Otherwise, people may die horribly. So he's around. It's great, and I'm glad he is. But I'm not sure what story we're going to tell, which isn't going to be a simple echo of what we've just seen.
Yeah, I agree. Lacey and Kevin, you both don't really have a lot of experience with the Sentry outside of this film. So I'm curious of your takes, Lacey. I know you have something you want to interject here.
Yes. Okay, so it kind of reminds me of, the Marvel, as far as the MCU is concerned, the answer is somewhere with Grey Hulk, right? You got the green guy, you got Banner, you got Professor Hulk, I guess is what he's not Grey Hulk, but Professor Hulk. So you do some sort of combination thing, and then he's got an attitude, but he can control it or whatever. But it almost it also has a little bit of reflection of like Dr. Fate from the other folks, from Black Adam, where he has the helmet and he can control bits and pieces of it, but he has like a time frame where he's able to, the amount of time he's able to control it before it kind of gets away from him. And I don't know, like I said, I don't have any information from the comics. So that's kind of where my brain went, thinking, well, he's there, so they have to have figured out something, or at least, Florence was Yelena was very clear. She said, "You're not alone. You're coming with us." Right? Is that specifically to keep him away from Valentina? Likely, but he has to have. He can't just, mop the floors. You know what I mean? I mean, he did say, what did he say? He washed the dishes. He can't just be the housekeeper. You know what I mean? So they're going to find something for him, and it'll be interesting. Now, whether he is the foil for another film where somebody deliberately triggers Sentry somehow to like kind of create another Thanos situation or something like that, you don't know. But I mean, he's there for a reason. They wouldn't just bring him in. If this is the only thing that he does, then this film does not stand up in the top 15. You know what I mean? So
I'm not sure they've decided what they want to do with him. I mean, we don't know about the Avengers movies. He could be an intricate, absolutely pivotal role to it. If he's not, I agree with you. It's kind of like he was great in this movie, and we have no idea what we're going to do with him next. Which is sometimes Marvel has that.
I'm interested to see what he does, but I do think that they can't just drop him. There is a reason.
I think they have an idea for it. But Kevin, I want your thoughts on the Sentry, because I've kind of had to fill you. I've given you some information about him over the last few days, and I know you had some interesting thoughts on this character.
Yeah, I started thinking about who in the MCU can take him out, and I started looking at our own heroes that are part of the MCU team, or have been. Scarlet Witch, but she's dead, I guess. And I'm looking at everyone that's been super powerful: Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange, Thor. Who can do this? So I'm thinking there's a master plan for him, because you guys are right. Lacey, if they don't bring him back to use him, then this is a wasted character. And I feel like with the bigger threat that they're going to try and do with Doomsday and Secret Wars and stuff, that they're going to find a way to use him to where, let's not just bring him in at the last minute to save things. Kind of like what, Captain Marvel did a little bit, So it'll be interesting to see what they do. And but I was taken in by Lewis's portrayal of him and the pain that he was going through, and also too reminded myself of his character, of how good Florence Pugh was as Yelena, trying to relate to him. And it was so important in the scene in the one with, when they're all sent to kill each other at that facility, and her reaching out to him. I'm like, that's going to pay off later. I think I wasn't being smart or trying to be smart about it. I'm like, her taking the time to do that was an important thing, but also a human thing. And I'm wondering that these two will kind of bounce off each other a lot going forward. Kind of like those moments that you had with Banner and Stark. They bounced off each other as super brains, Yeah. That's what we need more of Louis Pullman's character in this. And so I'm hoping they really utilize him, because he's showing me he's a good actor in this film. So let's see that.
So I'm just going to throw this out real quick as far as the Sentry goes. The Sentry has a very interesting relationship with both Reed Richards and Doctor Doom in the comic books. So there could be some very interesting play that happened in Avengers Doomsday if you're wondering about what could be something they do with the Sentry in the future.
Lacey, you got something?
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that they don't go the same way that you were talking, because it's kind of Scarlet, the way Black Widow, her banter with Banner, and her being, the girl power in the group, and him being the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde of it all, and them not being able to get together. And there was a whole thing there. So it was kind of like the failed relationship of it all. And I honestly don't want Yelena to have to deal with that.
I don't think they're going that direction.
Right.
I think it's more like a brother-sister kind of thing.
I was referring to the Stark and Banner banter, because
Sure,
they're both super brains, and I just meaning that they kept the relationship going throughout. They had these little quips, and I want that to happen between Bob and Yelena. I want them to kind of bounce heads again, and just whether it's talking about mental health or whatever it is, or eating tacos down on some street or something fun like that shows that they're still together and she still cares about him.
Well,
No, I was just going to say he's the little brother, she's the big sister.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So,
well, I will say that there's a lot to be discussed there, because she did not know she was not going to die when she took that step.
okay, Lacey, I'm gonna pause you right there, because I think that's going to tie into the next point I want to bring up. So, the third real topic I want to get into, and I think this is probably the most important one for Thunderbolts, is the fact of how this movie is tackling mental health and making mental health so incredibly important as part of its plot line. And I know there's been a lot of talk of that and a lot of things going on with that. And I want to hit a couple things in some articles that I pulled up about this real quick, guys, here, because it reflects not only what Thunderbolts try to do, but how the cast feels about it. So instead of glorifying trauma or turning it into a spectacle, Thunderbolts dares to present it as something that needs addressing, not avenging. Marvel's Thunderbolts marks a significant shift in the MCU, placing mental health at the forefront of its narrative. It doesn't focus on all traditional superhero action. The film delves deep into the psychological struggles of its characters, exploring the themes of depression, trauma, and the journey towards healing. In an interview, Florence Pugh said she was struck by something David Harbour brought up during the film's press cycle. David's been saying that the enemy in this is so related to loneliness and being trapped inside your phone and trapped in isolation, and how the key and the last piece of the puzzle is about connection and being with people. We all know that when you're in that state of mind, you just feel smaller and smaller and feel more and more helpless. And as such, an element in this storyline, these people that are just so trapped in their own inner turmoil that they don't have the confidence or the strength to open up and speak. The real message is we have to be together. We have to connect. We have to help each other. We have to be humans and actually care and love and look after each other. And that is the key. She closed out. It's something everyone can relate to, she adds, even people without superpowers or not. Yelena doesn't have superpowers. She just knows her way around a knife. And I think what she says is so big and such a big part of this movie. And I think we all have thoughts on this. Lacey, I want you to kind of start things off here with this. Mute. You pull the Lacey.
I did. I was so good until now, though, right?
Yes, you were doing great.
Okay, so if you look at the photo, just the photo we've got up, you've got the main 5 cast. And if you look at them, you've got Guardian and Yelena, who are dealing with the grief of losing Black Widow. You've got Sebastian Stan, Bucky, and John Walker, who are dealing with Captain America related situations, right? Bucky lost Steve, and John Walker has lost his family because of his interaction as the quote unquote the official Captain America. Hannah John-Kamen, her character lost her father. I mean, there's so many characters. Everyone here has lost something huge. This is a grief-stricken group of people, right? You see her, the first thing you see, even the voiceover has her talking about sadness and loneliness and all this kind of stuff. And then you see her just like fall off and you're like, oh, and then you see just that split second where you're like, oh no. And then she has the parachute and you're like, okay, fine. And I don't think that when she took that step into the void, I don't think that she knew that she was going to be able to help. And I think that Bucky was very clear when he said, okay, so what if she's not, what if that's just the end? You know, I think that Lewis talking briefly about sadness and like, he kept saying things like, oh, it's probably better this way. You know, when they were leaving the original, bunker or whatever. Yeah. You know, he kept saying, well, I'll stay here. I need to go back in there, you know, kind of very self-deprecating, very, you know, low self-esteem, very low self-image. There was very clear, looking back, you see, you know, the situation, but it could have just been kind of, oh, well, I'll be the guy that, you know, helps things out. And then once you realize that it's because of the void inside of him, I mean, it's kind of hitting the nail on the head, right? So I think there's a lot to be said for taking when you think about this film, you think, you know, they're in the middle of trying to impeach a president, and nobody's talking about that because you know what? It's happened so many times in America in the last.
No, it wasn't so much. It wasn't impeach a president. They were impeaching Valentina, who's the head of the CIA.
Okay, whatever. But you're talking.
There's an impeachment going on.
Impeaching people who are in the government at this point, and let's face it, if you know, in real life, this has happened so many times, and nothing happens, right? So that's not even a part of it. But it's real. Everyone that I know knows someone who struggles with depression or anxiety or, you know, bipolar, you know, any number of things. And I think it's interesting to see that as the main villain in a comic book movie. Like depression is the villain in this movie. And there's a lot to say about that. And I'm going to let y'all keep talking because I've kind of yammered for a minute. But yeah, as someone who has been in therapy for 25 years, it's my favorite day of the week. If you want me to be in a good mood, talk to me on Thursday after 1 p.m. because I've already my noon appointment on Thursdays. Talk therapy. I recommend it for everybody. That's great.
Mr. Bosby, I'm curious to your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an art house movie in the sense of, you know, something deep and dark and meaningful in that kind of deep voice. But what it does take is a genre that's usually quite lightweight. And to be fair to Marvel, they've managed over the years to get some real. I mean, Endgame, you know, is a very emotive movie as well as being a great action movie. But what they've managed to do here is very much, as Lacey has said, the enemy is depression, or rather the weapon is in some ways is depression. The thing to be overcome, the obstacle, is depression or self-worth. I mean, you can. I mean, I know some people will hate the movie because they'll be saying, "Oh, it's woke," which is a word that I've come to hate because so many people use it badly. But it's true that this is a movie where it retains all the superhero credentials, but it has a weapon which is self-worth. And that's a really clever, as Lacey said, that's a really clever way to do it. I remember somebody saying years ago the Final Destination movies, you know, in some ways were, oh, they're just, you know, slasher death movies, and some, you know, people dying, and somebody said, no, actually the enemy is death in those one, you know, and how do you defeat a concept rather than a supervillain? This is very much like that, which is for there to be a victory, it's twofold. They have to have a victory for themselves, which is say, I am worth it. I am not defined by the tragedy. I'm not defined by all the bad things that happen to me. I'm defined by the actions I do today, as well as defeating, you know, thwack, bam, whop, you know, with the actual, you know, the needing of some visual effects and fisticuffs in a movie. And what Marvel has done is say, give that a face, literally give it a villain you've got to get past, but you've got to succeed yourself rather than defeat the villain.
Lisa, you want to add something in just real quick?
Yeah, I mean, it's the confidence factor, right? I mean, look at the 5 people you're looking at. All of them have had their confidence dashed at one point in time or another right before this movie starts, and then you think about, folks like, Tony Stark and Captain America, like those characters, like, super confident. I mean, obviously you have the build up to those characters, but like when it's, this time frame, the characters that are the rest of the characters of the MCU are just full of confidence because they're still, on the riding high on the things that they've accomplished. These guys are all struggling with coming in from being either the bad guy or being brainwashed or being, experimented on or, whatever. And there's a big lack of confidence because every single one of them, when you see them decide to do it, they're like, oh, okay, fine. It's not, yeah, let's, except for David Harbour's character. And he's so overconfident, again, can't read the room to save his life. And he's the one who's the most confident with the least, maybe the least power of all of them as far as, but I guess I don't know. I think that confidence is a big thing in this. Yeah.
Kevin, I want to get what you think on this.
So, it's interesting, when I was hearing Lacey talk about like all the trauma that they've been through, and Red Guardian, he's like an old football player that misses scoring four touchdowns in a game type of situation, shout out Al Bundy. But what's interesting about this film, and it's played for laughs at first in the beginning when you see Elena going out in the building and then like, okay, the job's done. Oh, wait, she turns around and waits for the explosion. Then she just continues and she's just walking bored. The moment where she starts talking about how she's just stuck in this rut and it's taken a mental toll on her and it's killing her from eating her up from inside is something that it's a PTSD, sort of speak, that, obviously, real soldiers have something really, really worse, but there's this superhero PTSD that's been touched on, which is why I'm going to mention again why I really like Iron Man 3, because we get what happens to Tony after the Avengers situation and what it does to his brain and how it just knocks him down. And, he's putting, he's getting angrier more and stuff like that. But back to these guys, though, this is what a lot of these people are dealing with is, this mental thing that being a hero, supposedly, at least in front of, the media and the fans or detractors, whatever it is, that it takes a toll on you. Even though you're maybe you have a super serum in you, you still have these hearts and these brains and the stuff that's messing with you, that's hurting you. And I love that the movie touches on that. And the fact that Yelena says, I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of this, this one last job and then I'm out, and when she takes that first step into the void, it almost seems suicidal. Maybe it is, but then she does it. But she's going on a hunch too. At least I was feeling that. Mm-hmm. She's going on a hunch here that maybe this is the right way. Let's reach out to Bob. Let's talk to him. And the fact that the rest of the team decided to do it as a team, I'm even getting chills thinking about this right now, was one of the things that kind of teared up with me a little bit in pride. They decided to jump in the void too and to help each other, which brings me to my final point is what this movie does is it tackles the mental health thing, but also in a way without punching you in the face and telling you is look for your friends when they're reaching out for help, but not necessarily asking for it. Look for the signs. Don't just walk by them and say, oh, okay, well, I hope you feel better tomorrow. Look for the signs. I'm not in therapy on a regular basis, but I was after my first wife passed away. I was found out that it was the most therapeutic thing to talk about other people and their loss. And it was the best thing that I could have done. And thank God I did it.
And the first thing that they ask you when you start therapy is, tell me about your support system. It's exactly what this is. This is every single one of them relies on the rest, or at least will, I think, as they become more cohesive, they will rely on each other as a support system.
Yep.
I want to weigh on this real quick. I'm not going to go into a bunch of details, but right now, for me personally, this movie really hit close to home as far as this aspect of it. And I don't need to get into it. I don't want to get into it right now. There's a time and place for it. This is not this podcast, but the thing that I loved so much about how they handled this was each of the Thunderbolts had their own trauma, and it was different. You had Florence Pugh, and Yelena, who's still dealing with and trying to accept the fact of her place in life and dealing with the ghost of her sister. You have Red Guardian, who's still trying to hold on to the days of glory past and not being able to let that go and move on forward with his life. You have Ghost, who had been experimented on since she was a child. You have U.S. Agent, who's dealing with his own personal failures, not only as failing as Captain America, but what it's done to his personal relationships with his wife and child. You have Bob, who I think is probably the most like a lot of us, where we get feelings of questioning our self-worth and what we are. Plus, he might not understand it, but he knows what's coming with the boy. He has a sense to it. That's why he's like, I should just be walked back up, because he knows what's coming. And you see those things as they happen throughout the movie. As the first time Yelena really touches him, and it happens, and when it happens to the U.S. Agent as well, and you see those moments. But there's one thing that really stood out to me too, and it's this: when the Thunderbolts all get back together inside the Void, and they all kind of say something they've been through, but then you have Bucky. He's like, I've had 100 years to deal with this. I'm good. Bucky has had all this time. He's not technically over 100 years old. He's been through all of this, and he's the veteran, and he knows how to deal in ways with his trauma because he's dealt with it. We saw it in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We saw him kind of deal with his trauma. So it was interesting to see that separate reaction from Bucky than maybe the rest of the Thunderbolts, because he had already been there. He'd been through the ride. I've dealt with it. I'm good with it. I know I know who I am, and I know where I'm at. And I think that's a big thing for Bucky as he's gone through. So I give a lot of credit to the creators of this. If you're not familiar, there's a show called Beef, which was created by one of the writers and the director of this show. It actually starts Steven Union. It's about a road rage incident that turns into something a lot more. And while the director didn't necessarily plan on bringing this in as a huge big part of it, it kind of naturally developed in this, and he's talked about that. I think this movie is brilliant for that. I think that's what makes this movie so good, and I think it's because they do it in a way where they're not throwing it in your face, but they still, and that's why it works using the Sentry and the Void with this mental health issue, and it works so well, and it just comes together so well. They handled it brilliantly, and I've loved everything on the media circuit that the actors have talked about as far as that aspect of it goes, and how much they're supporting it and believe in it. And I think it's been just very well done. And I think it's one of the reasons why the Thunderbolts film is going to stay as a standout Marvel film going forward, no matter what they do with these characters otherwise. But I think it's time we do talk about that. I think it's time to talk about a little bit what's happening with these what's going to happen with these characters, because this movie didn't have just one stinger. It had two stingers. Kevin, power up that Tesseract for me one more time, because I want to get into this. I'm going to put this point in with our final phase here, because it's dealing with what the future of the MCU is. Okay, guys, I'm taking part of phase 3 and putting it into phase 4, because we're going to talk about the future of the MCU here. We had two stingers. We had this great comedy one. Let's talk about this one just briefly. Red Guardian out there promoting his product, his Wheaties box, having a little fun. It's David Harbour, just basically they probably said, we got 15 minutes to kill, David. What do you want to do? And he's like, I know exactly what I want to do. And we get this fun little stinger out of it in the cereal aisle. Kevin, I'm disappointed I haven't seen Red Guardian in my cereal aisle at my local store, because I'm still trying to find the Thunderbolts spot. You're muted, Mr. Wright.
That was done for comedic effect, and it worked quite well, especially when he tries to sell the box to the lady, and she's just like, okay, whatever. And she throws the box back. Do they have Wheaties actual box with these? I don't know if they do.
I haven't seen it, but that wouldn't surprise me if they didn't put one out. Okay. Lacey, are you taking Red Guardian home with you? Is that what's going to happen if you run into him in the grocery store? Just because you want him to hang out.
Dude, I adore this man. Just the fact that about, what was it, like 5 or 6 years ago when he just got in Hopper, and the girl on Twitter who put out a thing saying like, I wish we're allowed to do whatever we want for our senior photo. And he was like, I'm in as long as I get like a sweatshirt and I get to hold a saxophone. Have you seen these? Like, this guy is awesome. I mean, I've never watched something he's in and been like, nah. He's so good. He goes full, like, whole hog. He's so funny, and I adore him, and he's amazing. If he was in the cereal aisle, I don't know if we would end up hanging out. What do you want to do? I don't know. I don't care. Let's go and talk about birds. Okay, sure. We'll talk about birds. I don't know anything about, I'll learn some stuff about birds. Let's talk about birds.
Well, John, and I'm willing to bet David Harbour would be in his new Avengers.
Yes.
Tracksuit. When he does that.
Yeah, I mean, I knew there was. So I'd been told before that there was 2 stings, as it were, and I watched that and thought, oh, that's funny. That's funny. I like that. And then for the rest of like the 25 minutes of credits, I was going, yeah, that was funny. Now I want something serious. So if there'd been like another comedy thing, it would have been like, really 20? Yeah, I waited through all the credits for it. But if it had been the other way round, it wouldn't have worked. But it was a nice payoff to them, like a nice fun. We're having a bit of fun with it before we get to the serious stuff. And so yeah, it reminds me of so many commercials and stuff. Bad commercials in some ways. But yeah, I mean, he can pick up anything and run with it, and and David Harbour's hilarious.
Okay, Can I also just say something about the photo that you're showing of the Wheaties box? It's so telling that the character of Taskmaster is like almost grayed out. Yeah. Just because I know it's her costume, I know it's her uniform or whatever, but just the slight difference in color of the outfit, it just looks like she's been photoshopped in. Oh, poor Taskmaster. Sorry.
Okay, guys. Well, we did have 2 trailers on this, and as badly as I needed to pee by the end of the credits, these credits were worth it because this second trailer was absolutely imperative. Now, I got to ask real quick.
Not trailer, teaser.
No, teaser. Yeah, teaser. Sorry. Yeah, I'm thinking trailer, though, because I got to ask you guys real quick. Did you all get the Fantastic Four trailer before Thunderbolts when you saw it?
Yes.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
And I saw it a few days earlier, too, when I went to go see The Accountant, too. So I saw it twice.
So, Lacey, I know how you feel about trailers.
Yeah, I walk in right as the movie's starting, so no.
Okay. It was imperative that Fantastic Four trailer, I think it was very important that we got it because in the final stinger scene, we see the new Thunderbolts together, or new Avengers together, I guess, at this point. And they're talking about certain things. They're talking about things.
Hold on, just to interrupt. It's a year later, right?
Yeah, 14 months later.
14 months.
Okay.
They're talking about how they're having issues with Sam Wilson's team of Avengers and legal issues and copyright issues and things like that, and how there's a big cosmic thing going on. Well, it turns out they pull up use their satellites because something's detected, and they bring it up, and you see a rocket traveling through space in the MCU, and it turns, and we see the Fantastic Four logo on the rocket. Seemingly, this is the moment the Fantastic Four come into the MCU proper. But there was a couple other little things going on there too, because they were talking about how they're having conflict with a different Avengers team. And this is something they played up in the credits with like all these news articles and stuff. Is this not my Avengers? Things like that. It sounds like Sam's formed his own team of Avengers as well. And I have a feeling they might be a little bit higher on the power scale just because of who Sam knows. But guys, this is a huge trailer because it's setting up what's coming for the MCU. And not only that, I just want to throw this out there because I got confirmation of this today online. This trailer was directed on the set of Avengers Doomsday by the Russo brothers.
Yeah.
So this is a direct tie-in to Avengers Doomsday. This is going to be big. Kevin, I got to go with you on first on this trailer.
I'm laughing to myself right now because of the conflict that they're having with the other Avengers with Captain America, Mackie's character. I'm like, well, I don't want to live in New York anymore, guys. Why don't we be the West Coast Avengers?
Yeah, a great comic throw out tie there.
Yeah. So I just thought that was kind of funny, but after seeing the new Fantastic Four trailer and then seeing this, I got really excited because, you know, and I heard some people complain like, "Oh, spoiler alert!" You know, I'm like, I'm sorry. Do you not know that, you know, even though the Fantastic Four takes place in the 60s ish, they're not going to somehow find their way in the MCU? We've been waiting years for this. So yeah, I loved it. It was great.
Lacey,
I'm curious to. Okay, just because of the fact that you see it in this and the Fantastic Four hasn't come out yet. My question is, because it said something about like interdimensional. It didn't say. It didn't say like, you know, time travel. It said interdimensional, right? So we're bringing a different Earth in, okay? And I understand we've kind of got, you know, you have the Venom,
the multiverse already set up in the
multiverse,
MCU. So
okay, so my question is, because Reed Richards is Reed Richards and the big brains on that guy, right? So is he? The very little I've seen of the trailer, it makes me think that perhaps there will still be two universe or two separate Earths, and they're just coming for help, and they're going to take them in. Like maybe they're going to go to be in the Fantastic Four, because we haven't seen the Fantastic Four yet. So I'm trying to figure out because it seems like if that was going to be something that was going to lead directly into Doomsday, then this would have been released after Fantastic Four.
I think this is very much like, if you remember, there was the one spoiler at the end of Endgame that actually was a scene, or an end of Infinity War, that was actually the scene from Endgame with Captain Marvel and Thor.
Yeah.
Where I think we're very much in the same place here. I think what's going to happen in Fantastic Four is going to set up that scene in Avengers, because I think that is going to be a scene similar to that in Avengers Doomsday.
Yeah.
I think there's some key things going on here, and we're not going to have the full answer till Fantastic Four comes out. But I think what's that?
When is that? 2 months? 3 months?
Well, we're going to get to that.
July.
It's July. But John, what did you think of this teaser?
Yeah, I mean,
stinger. This is a huge one.
I mean, same as Lacey points out, it's a little bit, where does it fit in? I've heard exactly what you heard, which is this is effectively a scene from the Russo's movie. It was filmed by them, as you said, on the set. With the Endgame and Infinity War, there was at least one scene that didn't quite click in, or whatever, if you want to examine it. So I don't know to what extent. What I'm hearing about Fantastic Four, and warning, spoiler alert, I don't know if this is any true, but this is some of the supposition. One of the reasons they've used a female Silver Surfer is because that universe is destroyed at the end of the, that they effectively maybe save Earth, but are blown out of their universe and into ours. Or is it linked, is it linked to the idea of the multiverse problem that's going to be in the new Avengers movies? That certainly would be an interesting, Silver Surfer thing. We're going to have a male Silver Surfer in the Marvel continuity, but female in the side pocket universe. So yeah, where does it actually fit in? It's a lovely tease. It would make more sense if the Fantastic Four had come out and then this movie had come out and you got the tease. I agree with completely related. That would seem more logical to me. I don't know if that was a logistical thing or whether it means something else.
It almost feels like they're nervous about doing something that's got a time jump or a, because a lot of times, when you do something that's set in the 60s, maybe it seems too.
Well, I know with the Fantastic Four, it's like, it's not our 1960s, as it were. It's like a futuristic, it's
what we should have gotten.
Yeah.
If you go back if you go to Tomorrowland at Disney World, it's what we should have gotten.
That's the kind of thing. So I think we'll know more in a couple of months' time. As to, I think the end of the Fantastic Four movie will be very much a scene setter, and I suspect we'll get some more clarity, just a little.
Yeah. I think it actually works better this way, because I think there's a couple of aspects with Fantastic Four, and I'm not going to go into this whole lot here, but they pretty much already said, and they put, without officially saying it, that Fantastic Four is in its own Earth, a multiverse issue. But I think there's two key factors that lead to what is happening here. You have Galactus obviously being a big part of Fantastic Four, and something that people are overlooking or not at least talking about right now, and that happens in that trailer, is we get announced that Sue Richards is pregnant, which means Franklin Richards, which means a very powerful.
Sue Richards is pregnant, right?
Yeah. Which means Franklin Richards, who in in the comics is one of the most powerful beings in Marvel Comics, but he's a kid. And so, but I think there's a lot of things, and they really played up some things with Franklin Richards in Secret Wars in the comics, in the newer Michael Bendis version of Secret Wars that came out. So I think there's a lot of key things there, but it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But real quick, guys, I just want to kind of go over what we got coming. Obviously, we have Fantastic Four coming in July. I just want to say this real quick. I have not been 100% sold on Fantastic Four for a few reasons, and this last trailer has really got me excited. I was very impressed with this last trailer. I'm looking forward to Fantastic Four. I just want to ask you guys just real quick, because this is the big Marvel movie of the summer. This is the one that they're really putting all their eggs into. Are you excited for Fantastic Four? Kevin, we've talked about this a little offline, but what are your feelings right now on Fantastic Four?
I am more excited than I was before, especially after seeing the new trailer and seeing this. Can't wait.
Lacey, with this stinger, I know you kind of try to avoid trailers, but what is your excitement level for Fantastic Four?
All I had to hear was the cast. I'm in. Like between was Eben, like everybody, Pedro Pascal. I love the whole cast. I can't wait. It's gonna be fantastic. I didn't need a trailer. I just needed the cast.
You said fantastic. You said fantastic.
I did. I said fantastic so many times, all the times.
Well, John, I would love your fantastic opinion about your excitement level of Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I'm cautious. Everything I'm seeing, I like. Ben's voice is still a little bit of a throw for me. I think it should be deeper. I have a Michael Chiklis story I will share with you at some point from a previous incarnation of Fantastic Four. But the voice just sounds a little off for me. I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on the movie yet. I think the potential is great. And I think the fact that it's like not beholden to a lot of Marvel continuity, it doesn't have to wink and nudge and say, hey, do you remember this movie? Let's have a quick bit of video of exposition about this. It's self-contained. It may lead to more, there may be Easter eggs, but it feels the most self-contained Marvel movie potentially. And I think that could be great. It's setting stuff up without being beholden to everything that's gone before. It'll be fun. There'll be Easter eggs. We'll see how well Galactus works. That's very
he won't be a big cloud this time, so that's already a bonus points in my book. Mr. Reitzel.
I just want to bounce on something John just said that's really important, that we're not going to get an origin story, it looks like, from the trailer. We don't need an origin story. We have the other Fantastic Film stuff. And John just said there might be, regarding exposition, we might get a little bit in the beginning to explain to some of the newbies, with some news footage from the past, which looks like we got in the trailer. And I love that.
The only thing I'll say is I was very surprised that they're calling it First Steps. I would have given everything that we know. I would have put money on it being called First Family. But we'll have to see where it goes.
Yep. Well, and two, Marvel's going to keep on rolling. Fantastic Four might be the last movie of the MCU for 2026, but we've got at least a couple of shows that are going to be out here. The long-awaited Ironheart show with the character from Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. That character is getting her own show, and I'm actually kind of intrigued by that. There's an interesting cast and some concepts in there, and we'll talk about that more once it comes out. And you have Wonder Man, which, Kevin, a little Iron Man 3 tie into that show, because a certain actor who may have been a Mandarin or not is going to be a key part of that show as well. So
why do I have the feeling that these shows are going to be all dropped at once, like what they did with that other show?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, but I think Wonder Man's going to be surprisingly a lot of fun in that She-Hulk kind of mold, where they have some fun with it.
Iron Man 3 Vindication coming soon.
And of course, next year we have filming soon, or maybe even started. We don't know quite yet, but Spider-Man Brand New Day. Tom Holland will be back for the fourth Spider-Man installment in the MCU. And of course, if you look at right now what the tentative calendar is, May 1st, 2026, Avengers Doomsday, July 31st, 2026, Spider-Man Brand New Day, and Avengers Secret Wars, May 7th, 2027. Going to be the game changer for, I think, the MCU, because we're going to go in a very different, maybe X-type direction after Avengers Secret Wars. Just throwing that out there, my thoughts. But guys, a lot to look forward to. I think in the MCU, we have Robert Downey Jr. back. We have the Russos back. Tom Holland being back as Spider-Man. A lot of familiar things, but a lot of new things to come. And I just have to throw this one last thing out. There is a great picture floating around on social media of that Simu Liu posted of him with several members of the Avengers Doomsday cast all getting ready to go see Thunderbolts and giving the Thunderbolts cast their love and their props. Go find that picture. It's great. Robert Downey Jr. is there. Hemsworth is there. Anthony Mackie's there. Several other people as well. That is the one thing I love about the MCU. These actors support each other completely. Lacey, one last thought before I start wrapping up.
I wanted to say that the Avengers, all four of the Avengers both of the Avengers that are coming out are May releases, but they saved Spider-Man and put it on my birthday. And I'm very excited about that because he's my favorite. Okay.
There we go. But guys, it is time.
Can I
John,
just say,
yes.
Avengers Secret Wars comes out the day after my birthday. So
Hooray. Okay.
Marvel. Oh wait, where's my love? You didn't even put Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic Four comes out like 3 days after my birthday this year. Come on, guys. But guys, this has been so much fun talking Thunderbolts. I know this has been a long show, but there's a lot to talk about with this movie. I think this movie is taking a lot of people by surprise too in its quality. And I just want to thank my crew of Thunderbolts. I do have Red Guardian limo services ready to take you away from this podcast. I don't know if I'll ever see you again after this, but you know what? All I'm going to say is don't drink anything that's in the cabinets. I don't know how long it's been there. And yeah, certain things don't age well like you think they do. So, Kevin, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me at Spartan_Phoenix on all of the social medias. And for Blue Sky, you can find me at Spartan Phoenix without the underscore.
Lacey, I know you're not doing much in social media these days. Where can people maybe get a little taste of you out there?
You know what? I volunteer on the military sci-fi media track at Dragon Con. So if you're at Dragon Con, come by and say hey. That's coming up in September, September.
Time's flying. Mr. Mosby, you're busy still. Got some Echo Chambers still coming out. Where else can people find you on social media?
Yeah, EchoChamber.online is the main thing for the next couple of months. There's a few other projects in the fire and stuff, but for the moment, that's pretty much where my reviews will be. And I will be globetrotting for a little bit this summer and hopefully have more stuff later on in the year.
Yeah, he might even make a few more appearances on the Fandom Podcast Network. We're working on a few things. Speaking of the Fandom Podcast Network, you are watching True Believers here on the Fandom Podcast Network. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, please give us a like and a subscribe and a share. If you're listening to the audio version, no matter what podcast catcher you're listening to, we appreciate your support. If you're watching on YouTube, scan that QR code that just popped up on your screen. It'll take you to our master feed for all of our audio podcasts at fpnet.podbean.com. It still works. Kevin tested it on a daily basis because I think he gets bored, but that's okay. We love him for it. You can find us on all kinds of things on social media, but you can find Fandom Podcast Network on Blue Sky at FanPod Network. The same works for X. You can also find us on Facebook. We have great pages for the Fandom Podcast Network, True Believers, and all the great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. We love interacting with all of you. So please drop your thoughts. Let us know how we're doing. We love to get that input. Two, if you want to support the Fandom Podcast Network, check out tpublic.com. Search for the Fandom Podcast Network or any of the great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network, and the gear of the Fandom Podcast Network will pop up. And we got a lot of things there. We got shirts, we've got hats, we've got mugs, we've got hoodies, we've got pillows, we've got tapestries, we've got phone cases, we've got backpacks, all kinds of stuff there at TeePublic. They are always running, seems like right now they're always running some kind of sale every few weeks, up to 35% off of the product. We do get a little kickback on there because Tesseract Energy is not cheap, guys. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think there might be a Thanos tariff in effect. I don't know. It's a little weird right now, but you know what? We're going to still be here for you guys. And again, it's been great to talk Thunderbolts. This has been a big surprise for a lot of people. I love this film. Everybody here loved this film. It's been so great to talk to you guys about it and so many different aspects of it. But for now, until Fantastic Four, I guess, this is the True Believers podcast. And as Red Guardian over there gets geared up, like we like to say around here,
we are Thunderbolts!
Just stay away from the middle of the soccer field. That's all I'm asking. I don't ask much. Just stay away from the middle of the soccer field. Guys, I just want to say this. Excelsior. And until next time, make ours Marvel. It has been a blast. And we're no longer the Thunderbolts. We are the new Avengers. Until Sam Wilson takes that copyright away from us, then we'll work on it. So anyway, guys, have a great time. Go see Thunderbolts if you haven't. Go see it again because there's a lot of stuff you might have missed. Thank you so much. We are out of here.